Hey everybody, Riot Mort here with Riot Static, and we are back for another patch postmortem. This is 11.6, the Worlds patch. This is where we talk about the things we did right, the things we screwed up on, mock each other for our mistakes, and then learn from them. So, yeah.
We never screw up anything. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yep, every patch has been perfect.
Yeah.
That's definitely true. Right.
What's a war week? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so generally, I think we've seen a pretty healthy meta, though. There are like S tier and A tier and things like that, but generally, like everything has done pretty well. The data kind of confirms this. When I look at some of those graphs, they're the tightest they've ever been. So I think the end result is good, but let's make sure every change we did was the right kind of change. So
Yeah, I mean, like we're kind of nickel and diming at this point in the patch. We're trying to like get this like in the exact right spot, and whenever we're doing any change, we can miss too short or too far, and that's just like kind of what we'll look at, I think, going in over this one.
yeah, we'll talk about that with the B patch part as well. So, all right, Diana attack speed buff. This is one I actually think we could have done without. The Spirit comp is doing pretty well in a couple different ways. Diana 3-star might not be this like premier carry like she was back in the day, but I'm not sure giving her attack speed was really necessary or changed a lot. And if anything, because Spirit is based off your base attack speed, whenever she is in a 4 Spirit comp, that's even more attack speed she's getting. So this to me is a line that could have been like, did it really need to happen? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think for me, something I tried to push Kent on in this one was just like, hey, can we bring back Diana as a real win condition? Just because she provides such a unique item path, with the whole like Titans like Gunblade thing. Like it was such a cool thing to have around, I think, as just a cool way to use certain items that really didn't have a lot of use this set right now. But yeah, I would kind of agree. Like this change doesn't really push it in that way much. So yeah, I don't know if it does much.
Yep. Okay, the Garen 3 buff. I would call this a for fun change. I don't think we were going to start seeing anyone run Garen 3s in like super competitive lobbies, but I think there are some more fun Garen changes. Builds out there that can probably get away with in like the gold to diamond level. So to me, this is actually just fine. This is a win. I don't see any problem with this. Like, cool, good change.
Yeah, I think a lot of times I think it's a pretty big one, even though it's a small change. When we can kind of like open up a fun path or like a like slightly non-optimal path, even and have it not disrupt the rest of the game balance. I think this is kind of an example of like, yep, most people use Garen, as an early chosen to just like carry that early game and they sell them and never go for 3-star. But people who do, they get a little bit more payoff. So that's that's fun.
Yep. Okay, Tristana nerf. I have so much to say on this one. I'll try to keep it brief. We nerfed the 2-star a little bit, and we nerfed the 3-star quite a bit. I believe our logic at the time was the Spirit comp is good, and it's good to have a Spirit comp, but maybe the 1 cost shouldn't be the best version, because like the Sivir version, we were like, that's cool, Sivir Spirit, neat. But Trist being the best version was kind of not great. So this was one of the nerfs to that, and it's a pretty sizable nerf. That being said, I love that the player reaction was they killed the comp. That comp's never going to show up again. I can't believe Aegon made a new comp, and we have to kill it. And it did literally none of that. That comp is still fucking amazing. So this just seems like nailed it. Like it was a good change. It didn't delete the comp. It made it a little more fair. Sweet.
I mean, the only thing I have to add was we ended up nerfing her even more after this in a micro patch. So, we were actually treading pretty lightly overall. Like, if y'all could see the data on Tristana 3, it's like, wow. We thought Yasuo was good at some point in this set. It's like Tristana is on fire. Let's say that much.
Yep.
And yeah, we were definitely toying around with a couple different ways to nerf her, and just settled on this as the kind of way, like the most straightforward way to do it. I think it's hard because this attack speed buff isn't up all the time, so it's not like we're nerfing her directly, her base attack speed. So It's a little bit different. Maybe it was hard to understand how much that was affecting things, but I knocked her down a bit, and she ended up still being too good, I think. So.
Yeah. I think Kent calculated out to like 11% nerf. So
yeah, I think he didn't get back and said that it was like that was incorrect for some reason, but I think I think it was less than that actually. So
gotcha. All right. Lulu, the no double casting on herself. This is just, thank God. Like, I wish we'd done this sooner kind of thing. Like, thank God. This is just, get rid of those crazy overtimes that were awful.
Yeah, whoops. I think that's just on me. When I first put the changes in on how her heal would like actually, work, even though they were already big, I just didn't really think about how it would affect these weird overtime situations. But luckily,
cool.
Yeah, finally fixed it.
Yep. Nautilus. This is another change, and I think I mentioned this in the rundown as well. That's just like 10 mana. That's it. Like, what is this doing? I don't think this did much of anything. This is another example where I feel like kind of an unnecessary patch note, but didn't do any harm either. And technically, Nautilus is like a fraction better, which didn't harm the meta in any way. This is like this is like putting the golf ball and like having it move an inch,
Yeah, I mean, I would actually be a bit more negative than you are on this one, which is Nautilus is actually quite a weak champion in the data and just in practice. I feel like he's just he doesn't feel as impactful as he should. And like, yeah, when you 3-star him, you have Fable, like he does stuff, but that's like so much investment. And I think we could have gone a significant amount farther to help make him a legit, just like solid champion in the roster. But it feels like he's kind of paid the like Fable tax so far in this set, and it kind of sucks. Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel great about it, but I think hopefully the other changes we did with Nico helped put him in a better spot. We're always concerned around like, well, because he's so tied to the Fabled comp, like if we buff Nico, like how does that affect Nautilus and Cho'Gath and all these things? So.
Yep. Agreed. All right, Vi got an armor nerf, but this was mostly tied to Last Whisper. It wasn't trying to nerf Vi, so we gave her some compensation AP. Again, seems pretty solid. I don't think this changed a ton. Most people weren't really using Vi for the armor penetration anyway, and it made AP Vi a little more fun at that, again, gold to diamond level, so, like, seems fine, seems good. Pretty happy with this.
Yeah, I remember when we first put Tryndamere and maybe even Xin Zhao set. I was so excited, like, yeah, let's put Vi next to Xin Zhao. They're gonna shred and do cool combos. It's like that's not what happens.
Yep. Well, lessons to be learned. Okay, Zed. Zed, we buffed 1 and 2-star. This actually seemed pretty solid. Like, this is borderline for me of did it actually do anything versus did it not? It's hard to tell, to be honest. But we are we did see some Zed comps do okay, and shoring up their early game a bit. The few times I've tried it, I've seen you can actually pull a decent amount of AD at that 1 and 2-star level. So this to me seems like a good win. Maybe too light, but maybe okay.
Yeah, I mean Zed's he's been an interesting champion across this entire set, and maybe even in the later half of Galaxies. I think this is just a good change from the concept of just does this thing really need to scale with our level? Yeah. Because it's already an effect that scales with the game time, right? As more people building more AD items or starring up, there's already more AD to steal. We don't need to double scale. I think we've called that more double scaling this for no reason. And in the data, Zed 1 and 2 are not good champions. When you get to 3 and it's oh yeah, he's solid. And so we were just trying to give him a more smoother curve into his optimal case and not buff his optimal. So
yep. Makes sense. All right, Aurelia 3. This is just the Garen change. I actually literally have the exact same opinion on the Garen change. Didn't change anything at high level. Opened up some fun builds, and I'm sure a few people had some fun making an AP Aurelia. Cool, I'll take it.
Yeah, GV8's video is oh my god, Aurelia's unstoppable. I'm probably not from this change. But yeah, we ended up buffing her again in a 11.7. Yep. And I probably still won't be played that much, but she was so far lagging behind the other 3 stars that we just kind of wanted to throw her a bone.
Yep. Cool. Katarina, I really like this change. I think this change helped a lot. The jump from Katarina 2 to 3 was too massive. Katarina in the early game struggled a bit. This felt like a right change. It made Fortune a little bit better too, which has been fun for the casual audience or whatever you want to call it. But good change here. I think this was solid. Katarina's still a good champion. She's still not S tier right now. She's more B tier. But cool, that's what she should be. So happy with that.
Yeah, when you get the right items, it's just a lot easier to get into that build. So that's cool.
Sweet. All right, Cho'Gath. I can't talk about Cho'Gath positively. Cho'Gath is my least favorite champion of this set. Tied to Fabled, barely works in Brawlerd. His spell is you never want to run him over Sejuani. and it feels like such a miss. Like retro stuff, there's so much to talk about there, but this helped. But like I'm still finding myself, maybe it's just because I'm biased from all the past experience, like I still don't buy Cho'Gath, so
Yeah, I mean, I think this change definitely helped in just making him fundamentally like a champion you can pick up if you find him early, or if you two-star it pretty like in a reasonable manner. You can just like slam him in the front line, kind of you would a Sejuani, and at least have it be more comparable, which is great. But I do think, yeah, like Cho'Gath has also in a way paid like the Fabled tax, and I remember when we first started playtesting him, I was like, oh my god, stunning the whole board, this is so broken, and like it is, but that's not really the reality of how you play him every game. And so he's had a really weird balance journey, I think, across 4.5. So
yep.
I think this was a good change just in terms of like that. But yeah, he's just had a rough time.
Yeah. Again, there's a lot to learn from the Fabled comp, pros and cons and where it landed. So, okay. Olaf, -5 AD. Now he's completely unplayable. Nobody ever plays Slayers or Olaf anymore. No, I'm just kidding. This seems like the right amount of change. We want Olaf to still be a star carry. Guess what? He still is. He's just a little bit less of a star carry. Cool.
Yeah, I remember at the time of this change, like he was just a little bit over the rest of the 4-cost carries, and I really wasn't that comfortable with leaving him that way. And this was like almost like the perfect amount of change for him, I think.
Yep. Talon got the 5 AD buff and spell buff. Again, this seems positive. And what I'll say about all these changes is like you could make arguments that like Olaf actually needed -10 AD, or Talon needed a little bit more buff, as we see in 11.7. But I really like our approach here, because again, we're in competitive scene, we're in Worlds, we don't want to see any like massive meta shift. So I'm glad we've been doing these, again, buzzword of the day, nudges. These nudges, I think, have helped keep the meta in a good spot while opening up new things people might not have tried before. So the approach here, A+.
Yeah, I think that's just kind of speaking to like doing the right change for the right time. It's like, hey, we have the game in a pretty decent state. Can we like slowly open up some possibilities without trying to overturn the entire game? But again, if we're in a bad state, we probably need to be doing a lot more. And I think we've already seen that even in the early parts of 4.5, and even in early parts of set 4, we had to do some more aggressive changes, whether it was to the systems, chosen or whatnot. But here, we're treading lightly.
Yeah, I'm only laughing because there's a little bit of PTSD, because for what it's worth, this video is filmed Friday, March 26th. It's been a long week. A lot of late nights trying to get set 5 ready, and the balance, it's like, we have the set in a good spot, so here's a brand new set where we're saying screw it all and it's all chaos again. And there's a part of me that's just like kind of twitching in the back of my head, like, God damn it.
Yeah, they can only see the chaos that happens. So,
yeah. All right.
You know what's funny? Funny last thing, Martin. It's like I think in this little thematic here, Talon stole the AD from Olaf. He just like took it from his pocket.
Yoink. I love it.
Stuffed it in there. Thanks.
All right. Yone 3 nerf. He's unplayable now. Sorry we over nerfed Yone 3. Sorry, just nobody ever wants to change. Last Whisper thing.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I think we just found that 80% shreds are probably too much.
Yep. Okay, Ornn. Eternal Winter now seems like a more fair item finally. So this seems like the right change, and thank God we introduced those different ranges of debuffs. So sweet.
Yeah, I mean, how much we've had to nerf Eternal Winter from where it was until now is like, I think thankfully Kent made the right call and just pushed all the way down to this. It's a big nerf. It went from the best one to like middle of the pack, but I think great. It's still really strong.
I think the only thing nerfed more than Eternal Winter since PvE is Samira.
Oh yeah. Oh boy.
Last Whisper. I think this was a solid change. I think. Like you said, 80% shred, a little too much. 70%, it's still a freaking good item. People still build it. That being said, I don't know if the duration was necessary here. I feel like we could have just not done that.
Yeah, that's fair. That would put that on me. I think the reason I wanted to push for duration was, one, just to like sync up some of the other durations in our games. The shred durations are just not really like consistent across our game, and secondarily, it makes it just easier in case you want to run on someone who's not attacking super fast or critting very often, and like still have it be kind of useful. That was my thought, but it may just be really unnecessary. Could see that.
Yep. Okay, Locket. One of the other big nerfs to the Triss comp, but I gotta say, when we first saw the data that Monday, where it was like, here's the item data, and you see where Locket is, and it's like outperforming some of the spatula items, it's like, wait a minute. And the funny thing is it hasn't changed in months. It just took, again, this is the cool thing about TFT, is like all it takes is some player being smarter than everybody else for a bit, discovering something in a way no one else was trying, and then they gain like 800 LP, and everyone goes, look, panic, copy. But yeah, like double, triple lockets so that you don't actually need a frontline has proven insanely powerful, to the point where now that people are starting to optimize this item and know how to use it, we might have not nerfed it enough.
Yeah, it's such a good lesson, I think, in like, just because something's not useful right now doesn't mean that it's not useful. I think that's like, this is definitely one of those items where it's like it goes in and out of the meta based on which compositions benefit a lot from this effect. And I think that's actually really healthy, but it's really hard, even as like, you know, someone that works on it every day, to be like really happy with the state of Locket when no one feels good about building it. And all of a sudden it's like,
yep,
just build it on this comp and it wins like every game. It's like, whoops.
It's funny, and it'll never happen. But like, can you imagine if this happened with Frozen Heart, where like someone discovered that like, oh, here's this build where you play 2 Frozen Hearts on your Pike and you'll never lose, and it'll be like, oh, they need to nerf Frozen Heart, and you're like, but you've been asking us to remake that item for 6 months, you know? So
yeah.
And again, I'm not saying that'll happen, because Frozen Heart needs a rework, but
yeah, we're on the roller coaster with all of y'all, honestly. With this one, we're just like, yeah, maybe I think Frozen Heart's not great either, but who knows? Someday that might come true, where it's just like, hey, this Frozen Heart is suddenly the best item in the game. Like, I don't know.
Yep. All right, then lastly, we have the Sunfire not unique change. I'll be honest, this change makes me mad in a silly way. I made a YouTube video of this where I actually played triple Sunfire Aurelia, and to no one's shock, it's awful. It's not good. But it's like, do we stop you from building, 2 Sunfires? Maybe not. Like, I can see the logic here, but I don't know. Like, it's just such a random change.
I don't remember why we actually did it, but I think it was Kent, and he wanted to do it, and I was like, I guess so. Like, there's no reason for it to be unique per se, but
right,
maybe it's just a bait.
Well, I mean, but like, that's like, you built a Sunfire, you get a second Sunfire off the frickin' carousel or something, and it's like, well, at least I can put it on the same character and he'll burn twice as fast. Cool. Like, it's not valueless here, but it's one of those things that as a player you read this and they're like, is there a cool new build? And the answer is no. No, don't do it. And it's funny because GA has had the opposite problem, where it's like, GA is not unique because, you res with 1,000 health, but should it be unique? Because we're kind of saving you from yourself there a little bit.
Yeah, it's definitely like a design philosophy thing that we can discuss there. Like, it's just like some people, on our team believe, hey, it's fun to let people like do weird stuff even if it's not great. Some people are like, hey, protect people from doing like really unoptimal things, and it's kind of a balance we're gonna have to constantly strike, I think.
Exactly. Cool. Bugs. We fixed bugs. Bugs are good. That being said, the one bug we know of that we think is still in a pretty bad state is Zillion. Unfortunately, that bug has been kind of a pain to track down. Best case scenario, we somehow micropatch it during 11.7. If we somehow fix it Monday, maybe we get it out for like the Worlds build too, ? But like, unfortunately, this is one that just has been a terrible thing to track down. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I think this is one where we could have actually, I see where it happened, but there's just a lot of interactions in our game, and you fix one and then you break another, and I think that's if you ask Ken, he's been on a wild ride with some of these champions, particularly like Set. We like fix one bug, and then like 2 patches later we hear about this different bug with him. And Zillion, it's like surprisingly it has a lot of complexity to him and how he chooses his targets and puts his buff on them. And even though it sounds really simple, it's just there's a lot underneath the surface, unfortunately.
So speaking of which, I've scrolled up to the first bug fix patch we did. Unfortunately there were some of those exact things you talked about, where Kent was trying to fix some bugs, and then somehow accidentally caused some other bugs. And I know we're saying Kent here, and I want to call out, by the way, that we're saying Kent to his credit, because Kent has been so helpful in fixing a lot of things. Sometimes there are mistakes, no big deal. But so this is not us throwing Kent under the bus. This is us giving Kent a lot of credit for how much hard work he's putting into the State of Live. Just want to clear that up. But yeah, so the Frozen Heart thing was starting to catch on, so we ended up having to fix it on Friday because it was like, with the Frozen Heart debuff not clearing, turns out the item was really good all of a sudden.
Yeah, it was like Eternal Winter, basically.
Yeah. And then the set thing where it was just like, you'd have a 2-star set and he would just not cast a spell, and that felt really bad, so. And then finally, so we did this B patch with a few balance changes. Normally we wouldn't have done this, but again, because like these changes are so minor, they totally would have waited till 11.7. But again, with Worlds, we really want to go into Worlds and take competitive as seriously as we can and get it in the absolute best spot we could. So we hit some things, and we didn't hit a few others, and I'll talk about those too. But we hit Trist again, because as J-Box said, or Static said, she still looks insane. She still looks insane. Now this change is interesting because it looks like, oh, you just nerfed the damage 10, but Tristana has a weird interaction with Sharpshooter, where her bonus damage does not go down with bounces. So when she has 4 Sharpshooter, she is hitting 3 targets, 4 targets, 3 targets, 4 targets. Yeah. It's 4 targets. It's 4 targets. 3 bounces for 80 damage each. So by nerfing that by 10, that is actually a bigger change. Still being light, though, because, again, we're not trying to delete Tristana from the meta, but just trying to make it a little bit more fair. That sound about right?
Yeah, I think Tristana, like, have some people saying, it's really hard to put together comp that just, you need everything right to succeed. And on the other hand, we're hearing, like, oh, yeah, she's also, like, the most broken 1 cost ever. And so I think it's just, like, a balanced strike here with reacting to feedback in either direction. I think we've been treading lightly. I think she's too strong, and this hopefully puts her in the most solid place.
Yep. This was probably the riskiest change, but Nico continues, like, again, we know how the Fabled comp works. It's like, if you get everything, if you get a Vanguard Spatula, Nico 3, Nautilus 3, 4 Vanguard, 4 Mystic, or 6 Vanguard, 2 Mystic, whatever, and you've got perfect items, that comp is great. If you don't have that comp may as well be one of the worst comps we've ever made. And Data was continuing to show that. She had the worst performance of like any 3 cost. So you took a big swing here and went with the 50 buff instead of the 25.
Yeah. I mean, this, like I said, this Fabled tax has been pretty painful. I'm a little bit wary of Fabled-ish types of traits in the future that just augment these champions so much. But yeah, she's just been lagging so far behind, and like you can argue, like you said, the high roll version of Vanguard Mystic is like good, but like what if someone else high rolls a different their comp too? Like it just still falls behind those, I think, at the end of the day. So trying to get the baseline of Vanguard Mystics a bit better, and Nico herself, this is a significant buff, but she was far below, I think, what she should be based on being a 3-cost carry. So
cool. Next up is Kayle, and I think this one deserves some pretty interesting explanation, because if you base your balance assessments off of ladder, I think this Kayle nerf is probably a little undeserved. A little. The chosen Kayles were definitely outperforming, but normal Kayle was like, fine, no big deal. But when you start to look at tournament specifically, because there's a lot of pressure in tournaments, you have to put your lobbies together, your comp together a little earlier. Kayle was doing really well. So I think even though right now on ladder she's kind of perceived to be an A tier comp, not S tier, this nerf makes a ton of sense to me, and it's a very light nerf. So
yeah, I mean, like personally, I was kind of like pretty hesitant on this one. I think Kayle in the data looks really just normal with the other 4-cost carries, but she is, to an extent, probably the most flexible carry, not necessarily item-wise, but just being able to, like, switch your comp suddenly. Like, if you find a Kayle, a chosen Kayle, you can just, like, switch to it, assuming you had set up some amount beforehand.
Yeah.
Because, her trait web is pretty easy. Just, like, activate some Divine, put on Executioner. Well, it's really quick. And so having that be such a flexible, safe, option, it kind of makes sense for it to not necessarily be as high of a ceiling as some of these other compositions. So I think it's okay. But I personally think we could have left this alone, and Worlds would still go over pretty well. But
Okay,
you know,
we'll have to see if there's no Kale comps at Worlds or Kale comps underperform. Looks like we can blame me and Kent on that one.
then I'm gonna throw Kent under the bus for real this time.
And then we had Mage 7. Now, this is one I think we could pick apart for days, because it's like, was it Aurelion Sol? Was it Mage 7? Blah, blah, blah. The end result, though, here is I think this is the correct tactic, specifically because even if it is like Aurelion Sol, a lot of the times you may not appreciate the fact that, like, Annie's getting that much more power on her shield. The Vygar's spells are actually like killing things on the side. The Lulu health is giving you even more survivability. So it's like, I think this is the correct way to hit that comp, but open to your thoughts here too.
Yeah, I think this is a no-brainer. Like, Mage 7 was just overperforming for how much investment it really was. And at the end of the day, if ASOL needed a nerf on top of this, that's like a different argument. But I think this change was really solid. And, you know, we'll have to see whether not nerfing ASOL was a mistake or not, you know. So
Okay, and so that leaves sort of the four things that, like, reading around, looking at player feedback at the various sources, it feels like there's four things we could have touched but didn't that we should probably talk about. The first of which is Aurelion Sol. A lot of people right now believe that an Aurelion Sol 1 is just too powerful, stabilizes, you know, barely even needs to be an Aurelion Sol 2. Is Aurelion Sol 1 too powerful?
yeah, I mean, this is just basically a little conversation on how strong do we think 4-cost carries should be when, you know, when you first get them and all these things. I think ASOL, actually, his itemization is like fairly specific, and, you know, he's not exactly, you can't just like suddenly do him all the time. I think a lot of the players who play ASOL tend to like play around ASOL as a strategy, and that's why it probably feels like he's more proliferated than he actually is. I don't know. I saw the data and he seemed like he was fine. And I've heard a lot of feedback that, yeah, it's just it stabilizes your board way too early, way too easily. But I wasn't ready to pull the trigger, especially with also nerfing the mage in this match.
Yeah.
So,
and I agree with that. I'm going to oversimplify this. I actually believe that the 4-cost carry problem is very simple. It's ranged versus melee. If you have an early, because we even go back to like set 4, it's like whether you got an early Ashe, an early Jhin, an early Kayle, an early Aurelion Sol, those will stabilize your board. You get an early Tryndamere, an early Olaf, not so much. Not so much. So there is some of that to be sure. But again, I'm with you that like Aurelion Sol looked fine, and getting an early Aurelion Sol, you should be excited. And there are counters, you know, Dragon Claw works, things like that. So second one, I think, is Mage Swain. Any thoughts there?
yeah, I mean, I personally think Swain 2 looks a little strong and feels a little strong when you play against it. It's I think he and Samira, I think you're gonna hit that next, are just like both of the 2 5-cost carries that when you hit 2-star with good items, it just feels a little Omega bomb. But at the same time, they're 5-cost carries and you're hitting 2 stars with them. So that's kind of why we left them off the table, even though they obviously can be pretty daunting to play against when you're running up a strong version of those characters. So
yeah, Mage Swain was one. And I think the other thing too to call out is like, it's hard to nerf Mage Swain without nerfing Swain, and Swain doesn't need a nerf. So that's the other thing you kind of have to decouple there. Samira was the third one, as you covered. Samira with perfect items is quite good, but like I said, it's a 5-cost. And then the last one was Slayers. I think a lot of people were looking for a generic Slayer nerf, possibly. I think a lot of the meta reports I've seen are putting it at S tier. So,
yeah, that was, my personal take was maybe we need to do something to them, but it wasn't necessarily clear what we would hit, and besides maybe Samira, because I think Olaf, you know, took a recent nerf in this patch, and he was probably in a good spot. Tryndamere is like, he's good, but he's very counterable, I think.
yep.
And the Slayer's trait is like not necessarily overperforming, despite it being really good when it works. So I'm not sure what we would have nerfed if we were maybe with Samira, but
yeah. The other thing I'll call out is I think this is a lot of people fixating on the end game. Slayer is definitely one of the best end game comps, but you can't just log in and start playing Slayer. You have to kind of get there. And I think there are some things going under the radar right now, like Six Cultist and how good that is. You know, we saw Kurum dominate that final game with that, for example, but no one's really talking about it because it's not the end game comp, you know? So,
yeah, that's very true.
Cool. So yeah, this is our last postmortem before Worlds. I think we're both kind of excited to see how Worlds plays out. we've done a lot of work to try to like make this the best balanced Worlds we'll ever have. So cross your fingers, I guess. Any closing thoughts from you?
I mean, I'm gonna be happily watching replays of Worlds while you wake up at like 4 in the morning.
Why you gotta remind me, man? Yeah, so I'm helping cast. I still don't know what time or anything, but yeah, it's like the broadcast starts at like 5 in the morning, so I have to get up at like 4. So, and then also work those days on set 5. So it'll be something.
Yeah. I mean, there's just a closer to this actual section. You know, like I think after this patch, after 11.7, we're finally getting a chance to open the gates a little bit back up for the end of the set. So hopefully there's some fun things to look forward to ahead, and then obviously beyond that, Reckoning is coming eventually. So
yes, awesome. All right, well that is going to do it for us. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let us know. But yeah, that'll be it. So until next time, take it easy.